In this video, we're going to be modifying our existing pinwheel block so that it can draw a variety of shapes. So to be able to do this, we're going to need to add more inputs. That way we can control how big or small the pinwheel is. Right now, with just one input parameter, we can only control how many branches our pinwheel will draw. In fact, in the last video, I didn't really test it, and I probably should have. So just so you guys can see that it works, I'm going to put in 3 as the input, or the input parameter, and that works. I'm going to clear it. Let me draw 6 branches, and it draws a hexagon. Perfect. But first, let's go through for you to do number 2. So we want to experiment with the input for the second move block inside of our pinwheel block. Let me open up the block editor, and let's change it from -70 to, let's say, -35. If I hit apply and then I run it with 6 branches, let me clear the stage first. If I run it with 6 branches, you're going to see that the lines coming out of the hexagon aren't as long as they were before. Let's try -90 and see what happens then. I'm going to hit apply. I'm going to leave it open just so I could see it, but if I clear the stage and then draw the pinwheel, oh, it draws really long spikes. Still a hexagon, but now the branches are really long. What if we try 0 though? So let me change that from -90 to 0. I'm going to hit apply and clear, and when I draw it, it draws a hexagon without any spikes and without any branches coming off. Alright, I think we're ready for number 3. Let's add a second input variable to control the amount of backing up that the sprite does before each turn through the full 360 degrees. Okay, so to add another input variable, I'm going to actually increase the size of my block editor, and I'm going to hit the plus sign. First, we want to add some title text, and we want to call it backup with a colon afterwards. I'm going to hit OK, and now we can add the actual input parameter. So I'm going to hit the plus sign again, and I'm going to name this backup. Naming it backup seems appropriate because that's the number of steps it's going to have to go backwards based on whatever the user inputs. So let's hit OK. And let's change the move value from 0 steps to backup steps. Now our block right now isn't very intuitive. Let's try it out. If I hit apply and then I go to the pinwheel, let's say 6, and when I back up, let's say 35, let's see what happens. So it just drew a bigger polygon, which is not what I wanted. So when you use backup, you have to remember to add a negative in front, a negative sign or a minus sign in front so that the pinwheel knows how far to back up. In step 4, it says to change the pinwheel script so that it will accept a positive value between 0 and 100 for backup. Let's actually make this a mini challenge. I challenge you to figure it out without my help right now. Also, if you think that this challenge was easy, then I challenge you to accept both positive and negative values as input and correctly move backwards no matter what the user types in. I'll show the solution in a few seconds, so pause right now. Did you figure it out? Okay, so how do we turn a positive number into a negative number? Well, what we could do is multiply it by -1. So I'm going to go over to the operators palette and drag over the multiplication block. So I'm going to multiply backup by -1. And so when the user, oops, I don't want to wait that long. I want to wait 0.1 seconds. I'm going to hit apply. And now when the user types in a positive backup value, like 35, positive, and I hit OK, the pinwheel is still going to draw the same thing. It's still going to back up and move in a negative direction because the backup is being multiplied by -1. Now the bigger challenge was to make sure that the value is always negative, regardless of whether the person typed in a positive or a negative number. So to do this, we have a few options. We could use an if-then block, but that's no fun. Instead, I'm going to use another block that you haven't seen before and probably won't see unless you go digging around in the blocks. If we use the absolute value block, we can get the absolute value of the input and then multiply that by -1. Now, where is the absolute value block? The absolute value block is actually found in the square root block, or by default it looks like square root. You're going to have to click on this little arrow and then select abs. So we're going to take the absolute value of the backup and then multiply that by -1 to make it negative. So let's try this out. So right now, if I try it out with +35, it's going to draw the same pinwheel. But let's say I make it -35, it should draw the same pinwheel, and that's exactly what we want. Whereas before, it would have just drawn a bigger polygon. In number 5, we're asked to create another input called size to control the input to the first move block. So let's add this right after number of branches as they have in the example above. And we're going to name this size with the colon as the title text. And then I'm going to add the input, the actual parameter, as size. There we go. And now instead of moving 100 steps, we're going to move size steps. So when I hit apply, my block over here on the left includes the size input. And let me make that 100. Let's back up 35 and let's see if it draws the exact same thing. Perfect. But now we can control the size. This is awesome because if I make the size, I don't know, let's say 150, now it should draw a much larger polygon, or pinwheel, I should say, because we are backing up. So let's try it out. Perfect. Let's try to draw a really small one, the same one that they have there. Let's make the branches 5. Let's make the size 80, and let's make backup 60. I'm going to hit apply, and when I run it, actually let me clear the stage first, and when I run it, it looks pretty good. Try out your block with a variety of inputs and see if they're working correctly, and if they're not, you should debug it. If you want to share a challenge you overcame or have a question to ask, post it in the comments below and I will respond, or someone else will respond and help you out. See you in the next video.